Hiya, folks. This is Rick Emmett of Triumph.
This is Mark Merrill, also known as Johnny B. Bad.
Yo, guys, it's Mark McKay.
Hey, this is Frank Fletcher.
Hola, amigos. This is Billy Sheehan.
Hey, guys, this is John Karabi.
Hey, guys, it's Leva Leone.
What's up, guys? Cassandra Carson here from Paralandra and the Life Project.
What's up, everybody? It's Logan from All the Pretty Things.
Hey, this is Cody Howell.
Hey, this is Sammy Lee, drummer of the band Red Rain.
My name's Reggie, and you are listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Thanks so much for joining the most amazing twosome out there.
The most amazing things that can happen to a human being will happen to you if you lower your expectations. Welcome to the Weekly Pour podcast. Here are your hosts, TbT and Ace.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 81 of the Weekly Pour podcast. Of course, I am TbT, and depending on how you're seeing this, Ace is somewhere. I think he's underneath me. Joining us today, we have Jeff Clark and Melanie X from Second Shooter. Second Shooter is a female-fronted heavy metal band from Los Angeles. No gimmicks, no BS, just unpretentious, uncompromising metal that seamlessly melds the most enthralling aspects of multiple subgenres, including thrash, death, groove, and progressive metal into an unstoppable cathartic force. So here we go. Help us welcome Melanie X and Jeff Clark from Second Shooter. Welcome, guys.
Hey there, how you doing?
Thank you for having us.
There, I'll put in the real applause to at least have something. Welcome. I know you guys are both out in California, so as we know, we're sitting here in Indiana. You guys get the nice weather, and we get 38 degrees and rainy. So I guess tricks on us. We've got our YouTube chat going right now as we're live. Everybody that's jumping in, please be sure to send your questions if you have any. Hit that thumbs up on us. Be sure to tell us you're there so that we know you're in. We're going to have all of Second Shooter's social media stuff linked into this as well once we publish it after we go live. So be sure to check them out as well. First off, Second Shooter, you guys have just released, I think it was like 11 days ago, your latest album. I was telling you guys before we went on the air, the album is awesome. I absolutely love it. You guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. How did this? I was reading some other stuff, and this was like a 5-year venture of you guys getting stuff together to actually get. This is your debut full length one as well. Yes. So 5 years putting all this together. Number one, I'm sure people are going to be okay. Well, what takes so long? But number two, did you have to bring it down from a lot of different songs to get what you had to put on the album?
We were working pretty consistently. I'd say we had ideas. I'd say as far as fully formed songs, it's generally what you hear. We kind of would, we sort of took various ideas, tried them out, and we ended up with these 10 songs that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, you should be, absolutely.
Because we're a self-produced band, we never really knew where this was going to go. We had the first 2 EPs. They were kind of shorter, and we recently remastered and remixed those, put those out together. And so we kind of wrote this over a long period of time, not really with the idea of releasing a full length. We were just writing music to play live. And when we finally had enough put together, our management said, hey, you guys really should be putting this together in an album. The pandemic didn't help. We had a couple songs ready to go, and then we couldn't see each other for like a year. Right. So of course that slowed things down a lot too. But actually the end was a little bit of a race because we didn't quite have all 10 yet. And we had to kind of rush through some of it to get it done. But I think it all works together.
Right. You said it was self-produced. And I think I read somewhere where one of you has a basement studio or something you use to record this in.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. So we recorded this and produced it ourselves. We did all the tracking ourselves in the studio. Jim, the drummer, he did a lot of the tracking, and of course everyone does their parts. And then I did the mixing and final mastering. There's just, it's hard for a band our size to get studio time, to get the money together to do that, to have the time to do it, because we're all working professionals outside of music. So the idea of being able to spend 2 weeks in the studio to just record something was not realistic. So this allowed us to kind of do it as we had the time to do it, and it also allowed us to produce the album we wanted to produce. It just made things a lot easier. But yeah, the whole thing is completely self-produced. Aside from the label distributing it, we did all the music, all the mastering, all the artwork. We had someone else do for us. The layout we did.
The album cover, which I'm going to throw up real quick, that is badass. I just put it out there. That is awesome. I love the colors. There's a lot to this. Where did this come from? Whose idea was this?
Got it. The illustration was done by a guy named David Paul Seymour. He's out there on Instagram. He does work mostly for like stoner and doom bands, and I just love his work. I kind of love those genres too. I've always loved the way he works, and I love his saturated color. And I had the idea when we wrote the song Bringer of Death, which is about the Hindu goddess Kali.
Yeah.
So we wanted to find a way to incorporate that into the cover. We went through some different ideas, and that's the one we kind of ended up with. And we know we wanted something with a lot of stark color. We know we wanted something that was different, because you want something that just pops a little. There's a lot of kind of generic album covers out there that don't really grab people's attention. We wanted something that was a little bit more eye-catching.
You definitely succeeded, because that album cover is awesome. And I think for me, the genre of this band, you don't see that a lot with, album covers. It's dark. It's, the heavy metal, logos and all that, but all this color, it's like, oh, which is good, because that could play into your favor when somebody says, oh, I like the colors, and they buy it. So that helps out.
Well, if you've listened to music, we don't fit well into any one single genre, and we're not aiming to be just one single thing. And I think the cover also kind of expresses that. It's not what you would typically see from a certain kind of band, because we're not a typical kind of band.
No, not a typical kind of band. This style of music, you're hearing more of, especially, and TbT and I are both purveyors of Octane on Sirius XM, and this is the type you'll hear popping up on there a lot. So how would you describe this type of music? It's been described as death metal, intense metal, or something like that. How would you describe it?
That's a new one. I don't know, Melanie, what's your thoughts on that?
Sorry, my Bluetooth earbuds died, so I'm trying to get a new pair of earbuds.
Okay.
So I'm muting myself when I'm not talking. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, extreme metal is a good one. Is a good way of describing it, because it's just like in your face. It's aggressive. It's super heavy. Yeah, it's hard to sort of, I think when people ask genre, so if it's somebody that doesn't know metal, I just say death metal, because like sounds coolest, but I say like, it all has like a pervasive, like a groove running through it, so I'll usually say it's like death metal influenced groove metal. Yeah, sort of just a blending of, we've been featured on, some of our songs have been featured on thrash channels on YouTube, on hardcore channels on YouTube. We really kind of just throw that stuff in a blender.
I know.
Yeah, we didn't go for one particular thing. We just kind of, we play the music we want to hear. Each of us has our own influences. Each of us likes different stuff. So we're not easily pigeonholed in anything. I love 80s and 90s death metal, and I respect it enough to say that I don't think we fit well into that category. But I wouldn't say that we're necessarily groove metal in the same way like Pantera would be, or Machine Head would be. So yeah, we're kind of our own thing. Like, how would you categorize Ginger, for instance? I think we're kind of working that same angle. We're kind of our own deal. We didn't set out, let's do something completely different that no one's ever heard before, but that's what came out.
So with this album, did you guys listen to anybody in particular that helped to influence? This is one of the questions we got off of our chat. Kathy wants to know, what was your main influence when recording the album?
Jeff has a good answer for that, for mastering the album. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure. Yeah, as far as this, as far as the sound of the album goes,
as far as the sound of the album goes,
I'm hearing myself through the headphones there. Yeah, as far as the mastering and the mix and everything, we did actually kind of use a Suffocation album as the reference for it. So I believe we used Pinnacle of Bedlam as kind of the way it should sound, but that didn't influence the writing. It just influenced the way we mixed it and mastered it. As far as the writing, again, we just kind of do what we like. Like, we have songs that are extremely proggish, and you could definitely say have a Mastodon influence. There are songs that have almost a Slayer influence. There's parts of the songs that sound a little doomy. We have one song that's 1 minute and 20 seconds that's just straight up grind. We didn't sit down and say we're going to write this kind of album, and we didn't write it all at once. It kind of, a couple songs were written over here, a couple songs were written over here, a couple songs were written over here. So yeah, not any one thing, just whatever we wanted to hear, what we felt like playing.
Okay, what was the first song written for this album?
Ooh, that would probably be Diana the Huntress. I think we had that one written maybe 4 years ago, and we've actually been playing it live for quite some time.
Yeah, I think it's one of Ace's favorite ones.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's
okay, cool. One. Yeah, it's got a nice chuggy riff to it. It opens up maybe a little thrashy with the chugging, maybe in kind of a Slipknot vein, and then at the end it gets a little buck wild and goes to like almost a Whitechapel-y kind of ground.
Right.
Mel wrote the lyrics for it. It was kind of her idea. We kind of went off the idea she had for the song. Do you want to talk about that, Mel, or?
Yeah, so it's based off of a true story of a vigilante in Juarez, Mexico. Sorry if I say that a little, my pronunciation is very anglicized. But what happened was there's this bus line in Juarez that goes through Juarez, and it was actually known for the mistreating and actually, unfortunately, like tons of murders of women along that bus route.
Why, that's been going on
like
for a
it's
while.
a thing that's been going on for decades. Like it was known for
Why, that's been going on for a while.
Mm-hmm. And it was just known for being this extremely dangerous, literally deadly bus route for women in Juarez. When I talk and nobody else is it echoing? Is it fine like this? Or...
You're not echoing, but we are. You're not echoing, but we are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, when these recharge, it'll be good. Right. So this one woman. So there were these 2 murders of bus drivers on this bus route, and nobody knows like had they assaulted women, had these bus drivers in particular assaulted women, were they connected with any crimes? We don't know. But several of the newspapers received a letter, and it was saying like. It was a woman or it was somebody saying, "My name is Gianna. I am the hunter of bus drivers, and I'm doing this in vengeance for all of the women that have been murdered on this route and like assaulted on this route." And she said, like, "You think that women are weak? Well, you know, I'm showing you that we're not. And she said, I'm an instrument of vengeance." Well, in Spanish, but so the song is basically from her point of view, and it's about like, hey, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna show these bus drivers. So Diana the Huntress is Diana the Hunter of bus drivers. It's a really interesting story. If you just Google Diana the Hunter of bus drivers, like I did not do it justice. After the second murder, we never heard from her again, and I'm hoping that she got away with it. But that's the story. That's the story that was inspired by.
That's really cool to sit there and want to not only write lyrics to that, but set it to music in such a dynamic story. Just the title alone drew me in because it sounded to me, it almost sounded Pulp Fiction-ish, and I wanted to hear it right away. So. That one, and I think there was not the last one, the one before the last one. I don't have the track listing right here.
I happen to have the album just in front of me.
Oh, you Caged.
Yeah. So.
Do you want to speak to that one, Jeff?
Sure. I believe you wrote the lyrics though, didn't you?
No, Trav did. Remember, he gave the whole interview.
Oh, he did. Okay. So that one is kind of loosely based on what happened during the pandemic, where everyone was feeling kind of locked up. It's not a song about the pandemic per se, but more about just that feeling of isolation that a lot of people are feeling, where one day they're at work or they're at school and then bam, they're just locked up for, in some cases, months at a time. So it's more about the feeling of anxiety and the feeling of just being locked up and this wanting to be out and not wanting to be caged up anymore. So that one was one of the ones we wrote just after we were able to start getting back together and start writing together again. Travis, the guitar player, he wrote the music, he wrote the lyrics. And that's another one of those songs where you can't really peg it down for what the music is. It kind of goes all over the place, but it's got a hell of a groove to it. And each of us takes our space to write what we want to say in the song. The starts off with the really percussive drums, and that kind of builds up like the tension because it's like your heart racing. And then the chorus has this very interesting groove to it. And then suddenly in the middle, it's got this very gnarly, heavy, I don't know if you'd call it a breakdown, but it's very doom. And that was my musical contribution to it, where it's just oppressive and like burying you. We get a very good reaction from audiences at that one too. We had a few guys starting to throw elbows during that one, and that was kind of cool.
That's when you know it's a success.
Exactly. I mean, that wasn't really what I was thinking we'd get during that, but yeah, some of the younger guys, they started doing their crowd killer bit to that, and I was like, okay, cool, start swinging.
Now we've got 10 tracks total on this. And we've talked about a couple of them, but I want to run down the track list real quick, just for anybody that's not checked out this album yet. We have Protect and Serve. Deanna, is it Diana the Huntress? Is it Deanna? Is it Deanna?
Deanna, yeah.
Okay. Palm Reader, Bringer of Death, one of my favorites. Suffocate Eternal, Gold-Plated Pervert, Bleeding Ear, Set Adrift, my other favorite, Caged, and of course For All the Parasites. All of them are just badass. I absolutely love them all.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
So you guys talk about being self-produced. Sorry, Ace, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
that's where I was going to go, though. So you're right there.
Okay, so and maybe this is part of what you're going to ask too, Ace. But with being self-produced, Jeff, what is your background to be able to have done this? And I don't, you don't have to give away your superhero job on the outside or anything, but what got you into the business with that?
That's an interesting story because there isn't really one thing. I've been playing music since I was like 16. I think the first demo I released was like in 1990. I've been in studios for a while, and I've always watched the guys do their work, and I've always been interested in it. And the sound of albums means a lot to me. It's something that, a good sounding album is one thing, or something that's written well, but if it's poorly produced, it kind of ruins the album. So the idea of something sounding good has always been interesting to me. And then I was in one band, they broke up, and I had a lot of time on my hands, so I started buying like an interface and software, and I started learning how to like mix and master music just because I had time on my hands. Then I joined this band. They already had a lot of the songs that originally came out on the self-titled EP recorded. I was like, hey guys, do you want me to take a shot at this and see if I can mix it for you? And I did an okay job. If you've had a chance to hear those old recordings, they're okay. They're not great. But when we remixed and remastered them, I think they came out much better. But it was more just a little bit out of boredom and a lot of frustration because getting studio time is expensive. Getting good producers is expensive. I'm not knocking anybody. If I had the chance to get into a real studio with a real producer, I'd take it in a heartbeat. But we just don't have that kind of time and money, right? So this is an opportunity. And I think you're going to probably see this a lot more going forward with bands because it's just so hard to get your stuff out there. And there's so many hurdles. So being able to release it, and you can get yourself a CD Baby account, record some music, have it out there, and never have to touch the ugly side of the music industry where people are picking your pocket, a la For All the Parasites.
Perfect.
Right.
That was a good way to segue into that.
Yeah, the traditional contract has kind of went to the wayside. Now you can put a record out more economically, more efficiently. You're not the only band that I think that we've talked to that Red Rain did this as well, I believe.
Correct.
And I believe All the Pretty Things. that we talked to, they were piecing it together as they went in someone's basement, doing the same thing you guys are doing. One thing I did notice is that the big improvement on this record. So it sounds really good, and it does just what you want it to do. It's right in your face. The vocals are right in your face. The guitar work is really, really good. I'm very impressed with that. So it sounds a lot better. You should be proud of that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But yeah, it's not unusual for people just to descend into their basements and start recording, because it's going to save you time and money. And then you can get on the road and do what you want.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
Absolutely. Also, the fact that Jim has been building out this garage studio for like a decade and a half, like 2 decades.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe,
He's been building it out for a while. So having the ability to do the recording on our end with, good equipment, and then getting Jeff in the band and finally being able to live up to the potential of the self-producing and not only the self-recording, really made it all fall into place as far as being able to take our ideas and really make them good sounding music.
Right. So, and you mentioned getting Jeff in the band. This band evolved from another band, which a lot of bands do. So and this is for Miss X, did they consciously seek out a female, or did you consciously want to be in a band like this?
So they were just open to just whoever, just the best applicant. I found them on Facebook looking for a singer. I had actually only been doing vocals for 1 year at the time, and I was like, I want to be in a band at some point, like let me keep an eye on Craigslist. I was like, okay, this band is having auditions, I really like what they posted of their tracks that they have so far, and I literally went into this and I was telling my Uber driver on the way there, I was like, I just want some practice in this like auditioning thing, because eventually I'm going to want to be in a band. And I didn't think I was ready. And, but yeah, they decided to take a chance on me, and we've all grown together so much. And, I'm not happy with my performance on the original EP, because I'd only been doing it for like a year and a half at that point. But I'm really, really proud of where I've gotten and where we've gotten.
Right. And you sing in a unique style. So how do you describe the style, and how do you learn to sing?
Yeah, I would call it harsh vocals. So it's the deep growls, the high screams, the shrieking, just like everything in between. And yeah, so I would just say harsh vocals. I just learned on YouTube. I started with the technique and like not like being able, not like pushing it out of my throat, which is what hurts you. I've never had any issues with like hurting my throat or whatever. Like if I practice like 7 days in a row, like my voice will get fatigued. But I just kind of learned on YouTube how to do the right technique. And then one thing that was really helpful in like learning to sound good is singing along to like pop songs and just kind of improvising like screaming parts to them, because that gets you to like play around with different textures and different pitches. Because I know a lot of people start learning and they're like, okay, I can do the whoo sound, whatever, like I can do the sound, now how do I make it into words and pitches and different textures? So I definitely think that like improvising screaming parts to existing songs is a good way to do that, instead of either imitating existing ones or just practicing like getting the right techniques to come out of your mouth without really thinking about how to make music out of that sound.
So it's definitely a technique, and it's definitely its own art form as well.
At least to not hurt yourself doing it.
The singer for Arch Enemy, is it Alyssa White Glues, or however you say her last name? She makes it look so easy. And I haven't ever had the opportunity to talk to her, but she makes it look almost effortless. Does it feel effortless to you, or do you feel like you're really putting something?
It feels pretty easy to me. Yeah, I feel like I can scream as naturally as I can talk. I mean, I need to have the breath support, but yeah, it's not too bad. The effort is putting the time into getting the textures and stuff that you want. But as far as the sound coming out, you need a lot of air, you need a lot of force, but like it feels natural at this point.
Well, some bands also will incorporate the chorus melodies into the vocals. Have you thought about toying with that, or you just like doing it the way you're doing it?
Yeah, so we have one song with the cleans in the chorus, Palm Reader, I think the third track.
Yeah.
And I love regular singing. I love to go out to karaoke. I'll sing like Disney and I'll sing pretty stuff. And like I have my like sweet voice and I have my screaming voice. But I haven't really found a way to incorporate that into our music very much. I think that the aggressive stuff just works so well with our music.
Yeah, it does. It does really well.
I was going to let you keep going, Ace. You had this one going.
No, you're good. Go ahead, TbT.
And again, this is for you again with your voice and your style of singing. And you said you've only been doing it for a year. Like what? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 7 years now, but 1 year when we did the first album. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Did you just wake up one day and say, you know what? I want to practice this. I want to get on YouTube and just go for it.
Yeah, basically. I've always listened to heavy music everywhere, and the metal, the post-hardcore, just like heavy shit. And I always kind of thought in the back of my mind, I think I could do this. And like one day my roommate wasn't home, and I was like, I'm gonna do a scream thing. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna look up how to make it sound good. And then yeah, it was weird. Like so we were just on tour with Go Ahead and Die, Max Cavalera's project, and I was saying to my parents, I was like 7 years ago, I had never tried to make any kind of music in any way. And I was like, what would you guys have said if I had told you that I was going to be touring with like a metal legend in 7 years? Like, cause I don't know what I would have thought. Like, I would have thought that I was joking if my future self told me that. But yeah, I just decided I wanted to do it. I was like, hey, I'm like pretty good at this thing. And like, I have such, as all of us here and probably all the listeners, I have such a passion for music. And like, oh, it turns out I can be on this side of the music, not just the consumer, but also making something that other people enjoy out there. So yeah, just weird. I always tell people, I'm like, I wonder how many people just have like this really niche talent that they've just never even thought about trying. Like someone that's never thought about baking would be like the best cake baker or whatever. Like, because I just had no idea I could do this, and then I started, and then I'm like, oh, my voice can do this thing, and I can add it to this like awesome music, and like add like actually contribute something to music. So just decided to try it, and now it's like my thing.
I have tried in the shower, and it is not for me. Now, I will tell you, and Ace, I'm sorry if I'm stealing your thunder here, but being that you guys are a female-fronted metal band, we've had Leather Leone on a couple times, and she is just, for us, she's just an absolute icon. And I know Ace sent your stuff to her so that way she could listen and hear your voice, because that's one thing we talked about when we interviewed her, is really the lack of good or incredible, and we'll put that out there, female fronted metal bands. You don't have everyone that wants to sit out there and go, you know what, I can do this with my voice, and I'm going to go out there. And for you to be able to do it, and you sound, I'll say, perfect on all 10 of those tracks. Like there's where it's like, this one's okay and that one's okay. It's just straight up, in your face, boom, you're there, and you can't tell that there's any kind of nothing. So I don't know if Ace ever got anything back from her or anything, but we know she does have it, so she's at least listened.
That's so cool. Thank you for sending that over. Yeah, that's awesome.
She expressed love in that type of vocal, even though she doesn't sing like that. She wishes she could. And this is a woman who's done a lot and toured a lot and put out a lot of great records. And she's 60-something years old, and now she's wondering, oh wow, I wish I could go back and sound like what you're doing, which is pretty cool. So now you guys are based out of LA, right? So TbT and I are quite a bit older, so the LA scene, quite a bit. The LA scene in the 80s was a lot of the glam metal. The heavy metal in the early 80s was coming out, evolving. What's the LA scene like now?
Setting us up a little there. And I would probably state that I'm probably around your age or older. But it's kind of tough right now. The city of LA doesn't really embrace rock a whole lot anymore. There are metal bands out there, but as far as the public consciousness of it, it's not like the 80s and 90s anymore, where you can just pop into a lot of different clubs and they're playing rock and metal music. There's fewer and fewer venues all the time. It's more do-it-yourself shows, underground shows, that kind of stuff. We've actually had a few run-ins with locations where they signed us on to play. We're not necessarily playing with the bands we should be playing with, and then after that, we kind of hear that they're not going to do metal anymore. So that was kind of funny.
I thought you were going to talk about
it's rough.
It's rough. There was a noise complaint before we got to go on.
That's right. That's right. We drove out to a place. And we didn't even have a chance to play there. It took me like 2 hours to get this place. It was down in Orange County. And right when I pull up, I see like cop cars outside there. Then there was like some code violation. And so we drove down there and they shut down the show before we even got to play. So that was exciting. But that was more the venue's problem. It wasn't so much the music. They just, I guess a neighbor didn't know who they moved next to or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough. It's definitely not like it was. You don't have your just pick a bands. There's still people out there making music. They may be doing more of the DIY thing and just releasing it digitally than trying to play. There's certainly no shortage of bands though. So there is a lot of competition for slots. There's just fewer venues to play. So that makes it kind of tough. I won't shoot myself in the foot and go into the gnarly details of playing in LA clubs. It is difficult and not always as fun as you would like it to be.
How so? Go ahead.
You said he wasn't going to shoot himself in the foot.
Like I said, you don't shit where you eat. But right, it's rough. You know, the best shows are the ones where you get to play for free. Let's leave it at that.
I got it. Ace, I'll explain it afterwards. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I was reading part of your the PR release that we have, which I think it's cool because, like Ace said, you know, we have a lot of that whole 80s, 90s thing going on, but you guys were able to play at the Whiskey.
Yes, several times.
I would like to go play at the Whiskey, even if it was just a harmonica, something, because right. I just, you know, that's iconic. And for me, I guess that would be the country version of the Grand Ole Opry, in my opinion. You know, being able to go to the Whiskey and perform, that'd be like a highlight of my career. Obviously, they're not big stadiums or anything like that, but just due to the history, I think it's still a pretty cool thing. Ace.
Yes.
I was waiting.
Do you want to say anything about that, Mel?
Well, I agree with you that it would be cool to play the Whiskey. You know, how was it for you guys? What was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. It's a legendary venue. Same with like the Viper Room, and it's like, wow, like so many legends have played here. In LA, the process of being a local opener is very at these like legendary venues is like not glamorous. You know, like you're. I always say like, sorry, I'm just like we're just the lowly local openers because that's kind of how you're treated. You know. But
this is where you pay to play thing.
Yeah, so
that
like
is definitely one of the play
venues. Yeah, so like you're like, you know, they're like, okay, you can play here. You have to sell this many tickets. Like it's not so much like it's kind of like it's a privilege for you to be able to play here and don't ask for anything else but the opportunity. But no, I mean at every venue we've played at, we've worked with cool people that love the music just as much as us, but the whole like system as a whole for playing at these types of venues are very much like basically like like if you're a local band that wants to play and you're good enough to play, here is this, you know, opportunity, and just be thankful and don't really ask for anything else from us and sell this many tickets as part of the whole dealio. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've played there now a couple times. I think we played with Scour, we played with Swallow the Sun, and we played with Ginger. So we've actually been on that stage with some pretty big bands. And yeah, it is a great experience. It is one of the bigger clubs in Los Angeles. But yeah, there's some hoops you got to jump through. It's just kind of the name of the game and how things go.
Right. Jeff, we've talked how Melanie Ubered to get to her audition or whatever. So how did you end up in the band, Jeff?
Got it. I think it was Craigslist. They were looking for a band. So by that point, they had replaced a singer with Melanie. They replaced a guitarist who was he was leaving on good terms. He just wanted to go do something else. And so I was kind of the last piece. Their bass player, this guy named Paul Rogers, super cool guy. We still talk to him and hang out with him. He was joining another band, and he didn't want to leave him in the lurch. So he hung around until they could find another guy. I came and auditioned. They sent me some of the stuff on MP3. It was easy enough for me to kind of pick up in a week or so. And I came and auditioned, played for like an hour and said, "Hey, if you want to call me back, call me back." And they did. So I've been at this for a little bit. It was one of the easier auditions I've done, just because like they're such welcoming people. They're such cool people, and we get along with other bands and other people very easily, and it felt very welcoming the moment I got there. So that part of the process was very cool. It wasn't nerve-wracking or anything. It was one of the easier auditions that I had done. But yeah, I was kind of the last part of the puzzle there.
So had you been in other bands prior to this? You say you're roughly close to TbT and I's age. So
yeah.
Has it been something you've been doing for a very long time? Yes.
Yeah, I started playing in like a death grind band in the LA area, 1991 or so, 1992. Then kind of some experimental stuff that didn't always pay off. Then in the early 2000s, I was in a short-lived band called Maleficia. We played a few shows. That broke up. Then I was in another band called Agent Spell for a few years, and we did okay. We had 3 albums, we had some distribution, but then the vocalist the guitar vocalist just ghosted us all of a sudden, and that was the end of that. And so then I had some time off between that and this band, and I was looking around trying to find something, not really sure what my niche was. The previous stuff was all like kind of doomy, kind of Black Label Society, like more straight ahead rock than this was. But I've been into death metal since I was a little kid, so I brought that aspect to this, whereas Trav was more into like new metal and groove metal, that kind of stuff. Wynn is very prog oriented. He's loves Mastodon. Jim's got this Slayer thing down, like he's got the Dave Lombardo thing totally down. Yeah, we all kind of play off those influences, but I was the last one, and it was just like an ad.
So you're telling me no spandex and big hair in the past for you at all?
No. So even though I was starting to get into metal in the late 80s when that stuff was still kind of prevalent, I'd probably say the most quote unquote hair band I ever got into was either Guns N' Roses or Wasp. But, Wasp was a special kind of hair band. They threw raw meat at their crowd and had a saw blade going through his cob piece. So, I don't know if I call that a glam band, but they certainly fit that mold. No, but yeah, again, I don't want to bury myself here, but yeah, there are a lot of bands from that era that I'm like, no, dude, you suck. I was not into that stuff. I was more into thrash, more into death metal.
Yeah, right. And so much of that was even more underground then, I believe, than it is now. Now you can, like I said, you can flip on the radio. If you got satellite, especially, you're going to hear some of that. I don't know if I even knew it existed back then, except for maybe Typo Negative was a band that was different back then.
Right.
There was Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse
was around for a long time.
Yeah. So
I suppose it depends what your circles are, because I don't know, for old school guys like me, like the early 90s were kind of a high point for that genre of music. So yes, there's a lot of bands around right now, and a lot of them have access to labels in a way, but some of the most legendary albums and legendary bands came out of that time period. Your Napalm Death, your Carcass, your Suffocation, your Cannibal Corpse, your Incantation, I could go on and on about these bands that came out around that time. And it was a great time to be listening to that kind of music, because honestly, like from like 1988 to 1992, they were some of the greatest death metal albums ever made. And they got some level of exposure, and to a certain degree, that's what caused the downfall there. Because in 93 and 94, the grunge thing came around, and then like people kind of got out of that genre of music and started gravitating more towards like Pantera or something, right? Or the second wave of American heavy metal, which wasn't usually my bag either.
Right.
But it got a little oversaturated. Some of these guys got moved over to big labels, and then Warner Brothers was like, okay, we want you to do everything except what you are, which kind of makes it hard when you're in that sort of genre. But in a way, death metal does have a little bit more exposure today in that we've kind of gotten used to it. And there's not as much in the way, because how many I don't know what you call traditional metal bands are really around anymore, right? Everything's become a little bit more extreme.
Right. And the window that you're talking about was so small before grunge hits. These great records that you're talking about come out in such a brief period of time, but have such a big impact. On someone such as you and then other bands that come along later, which is pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of WW3. I don't know if anybody remembers them. They didn't last too long, but their album cover, we'll go back to what we were talking about, dark, some kind of weird looking ape or demon or something on there, and I was just enthralled with them. Now I have to look them back up.
That one.
Do you feel that the digital influence, as we've moved on to being able to download songs and all that, do you think that's helped the genre a little bit more expand to those people that couldn't get into it before because they're not going to buy the album, they might not buy that CD, but now they have the opportunity to actually dive in on their own to just a plethora. I mean, we'll throw YouTube in there too, just a plethora of different digital platforms to be able to expand their own knowledge of music. Do you think that's helped the genre that you guys are involved in?
I definitely think that people having easy access to a variety of things, definitely it's not like they would have gone into Amoeba and picked up a death metal record, but if they see it on a playlist on Spotify, or they hear the name, they can just go and listen to one thing. I think that's huge, in people just in general getting to try out genres that they never would have. In general, digital distribution of music is a double-edged sword, because it also means the internet is just so saturated with music, which means there's a little bit more to dig through to find the good stuff. But as far as people being open-minded to at least giving a track a spin, it's definitely great for that.
Yeah, TbT and I talked last week about was it Spotify or Apple list of it was thousands of bands that didn't even get a play, or had one play, or 10.
Yeah.
Just thousands of them, because so many people can do what you and I are doing. Like, we can upload our podcast, so can anyone else. Right. The difference is you guys have a little bit of experience. You've got a guy sitting right here that can, mix and engineer your music. You've got a vocalist that's unique. Not everyone has those things. You got experienced guitar players, guys that have been around. But so I'm sure these people that are not getting any listens are me strumming an E chord or or something like that for 10 minutes. I don't know, but the digital things have really made a difference.
Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. So back in the analog days, right, you'd have a bunch of bands playing venues, and you'd hope lightning would strike. You'd hope you'd be in the right place at the right time, someone would notice you. Now we're doing the same thing, only as with a computer. So we're hoping that the right person hears your stream, and that's it. But you're still looking for a needle in a haystack. I don't know if there's more white noise or less white noise. I sometimes feel like I'm being overwhelmed by content, because there is so much content to have to sift through to find something. And I don't know if that's necessarily changed, because there used to be tons of bands playing these venues every day of the week. And, out of 100 of them, 1 or 2 would actually be any good. I again, don't want to necessarily say anything bad or disappointing to people, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you're kind of like, okay, I've heard that, There's just, people creating the music they want to create. I don't know if they're doing it because they feel the need to create it. I don't know if they think it's going to be commercially viable. I don't know if they're just experimenting and putting stuff out there. I don't know if they just want attention. I can't begin to guess where people's heads are at. I don't want to try to. But sometimes there's a lot to have to sift through. Some of it's great. The mass majority of it is probably not so great. But that's just how it goes, right?
Right.
Well, and then the other thing about digital everything is like now there's that extra layer of like if you really want as many ears as possible on it, you have to like do the social media thing, which none of us is good at. Like I don't know, like we do our best, but like some people, like especially the younger people, it comes naturally to like they enjoy making like a short little video, or like they think of stuff to post that's going to get attention, like memes and whatever. I don't even know. So that's a kind of annoying thing, but I guess in a way it gives people a little bit more control over their destiny if they're not old and bad at social media like us.
Right. And I think that feeds a little bit into our tagline, where a lot of people are trying to do these things to make themselves stand out. And sometimes they're working more on the gimmick than they're working on their music. I'm not going to say we're the greatest songwriters ever or anything, but we're more focused on just trying to write music and writing music we think people want to hear without consciously sitting there going, we're going to play this kind of music. We're going to play this kind of genre. We're going to arrange our songs to be appealing to this group of people. We're not doing that. But at the same time, we're not like, hey, what outfit should we be wearing? What thing can we do?
I think a lot about my outfit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Melody comes up with some very good outfits. The rest of us are kind of slobs. I'll admit that. We t-shirt and jeans. That's just what we do. But that makes her pop because she's a lead singer, and you need that, right?
Right. It's kind of
but exactly. But we're also the no gimmicks, no bullshit, just metal. That's what we're after. We're not after trying to create memes to get eyeballs. We're just making the music that we want to hear. And I think that translates well for people. As we talked to people on this tour, they kind of appreciate the simplicity in what it is that we're doing. We just get up there and we play. We're not manufactured. We're not a sound alike. We're not doing a thing. We're just making our music.
Right. And I think, that's one of the advantages you have is, you're not tied down to a major, label contract. You're making your own music.
Yes.
And you can continue to do that as long as you want to do that. If you get some big deal that wants to change everything, then you're going to have a lot to think about. How do you want to sound? Yeah, you probably haven't thought that far ahead. I'm sure you're trying to just.
I mean, like I said, some of us have been doing this for a little bit, so every now and again you do have those thoughts in your head. And when management approached us for that, when the tour approached us, we were able to kind of figure this stuff out and plan it, because this isn't our first rodeo. We kind of know how it goes. We're not. The upside is if someone comes at us with something that looks really attractive, we're not going to just start hyperventilating. Oh my God, it's our chance. We know how predatory the music industry is. We know everyone's just out there to pick your pocket, to get a nickel off of you. So take everything with a grain of salt, read everything, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Where's the control over their own music? The thing about the distribution deal we have right now is it is just that, just a distribution deal. We did the recording and we just released it. I think that's actually something I see on the internet a lot, where people think, oh, they're on X label and all bands on X label sound like this. The labels don't give two shits what the band is recording. They just know, like, if it's a known band, they're not telling them how to produce. They're not telling them how to write. They just give them the record because they know I have a 5-album contract with this band that everyone knows, or it's a band that submitted something and they know who they are. The labels have no control, really. It's not like the 80s where a label's telling you, you're going to sound like this. I'm going to produce this one single for you. I'm going to come into the studio and tell you how to sound. No one's doing that these days. It's just whatever you come up with on your own.
Right. So the guy coming in and saying we need more ballads or more cowbell or whatever.
Right. That shit don't happen no more.
Well, that's
cowbell.
That's a good thing. Sometimes you need more cowbell, right?
Yeah, it depends what you're going for, sure.
So, obviously, you see these big like summer tours where you have 50 bands on a bill. Is that something that you guys would want to do to get to that point, or do you feel like you're just a name on a board, or do you feel like that would help your exposure? Either
What
one.
do you think? Like you mean like more of a festival type thing, huh?
Right, the festival type
That's
thing,
sort of. I think
walking
that would be
overseas.
like a fun like experience for sure. Like something to try out, but not necessarily like, long-term ideal. What we just did, we were on a 3-band tour package, or well, the national tour was Go Ahead and Die and Body Box, and we joined them on their first 9 dates. And we really liked that we got to sort of yeah, I mean, we got to play with these amazing bands, and like they had more of a national following than we did, but so we got to kind of like glom onto that, but also just like win over all these new audiences. And we weren't just one of 50 bands that these people were seeing.
Right.
There was the local openers, us, Body Box, Go Ahead and Die. So it was enough of a light on us, and like enough, we were just able to win over like so many new fans.
The
So
way
we
you
had
said,
that
go
opportunity to
ahead.
stand out. Yeah, so that's Max Cavalera and his son Igor Amadeus Cavalera. It's their new project. Um, and yeah, all of them are such incredible musicians, and yeah, it was really cool to get to work with them.
Yeah, and like you said, that's a smaller tour with 3 bands or 4 bands, but you probably get a longer set. You get more exposure to
Hmm.
all bands and win them over. And not that I'm disparaging a big festival, because a lot of bands do the big festival, but you may be on stage X in a cornfield, playing in front of the
20
10
minutes.
fans
Yeah.
printed over that way,
Right.
but the way you're doing it now, you're center stage.
Yeah.
So I think that may be a better avenue right now.
I mean, and there are a lot of those festivals, and I guess it would depend on the festival and where it is. As an experience, like I wouldn't mind doing it. That is something I haven't done. It's mostly been small clubs. To be on a big stage in front of a big audience like that would be exciting. If we were approached to do one, we'd certainly do it. It's kind of a bucket list thing. Do I think that would be a make it or break it for us? I don't know. It's all baby steps, right? There's so many bands trying to get so many eyeballs. I almost think sometimes there are more bands than there are eyeballs. But you get yourself out in front of as many people as you can. And this tour showed us, even being the third string opener, really just we got to so many more people. Being in front of people who have never seen you before, wouldn't have found out about you any other way. That's kind of what it's all about. That's why we play live shows. That's how metal always was worked, right? Like, get yourself in front of people, and if your product is good, they will like you. If you can only play in front of an audience where they know your music or they already like your genre, then you're locked into that and you're never going to grow. I would hope that we can appeal to a bigger group of people than just like one subset of one scene in one city.
Yeah, one thing that was cool to hear, well, it was kind of good and bad to hear, was like some people would say like, I don't know how much this is directed toward me versus like the overall image of us. People didn't know what to make of us, and I had some people come up there like, yeah, I was kind of skeptical when I saw you on stage, and then you started playing. I'm like, I don't know, like because of how I look and how I dress, or like just in general, people don't know what to make of us when we're on stage. But it was really cool to hear that, like, hey, I basically reading between the lines, I didn't think that you were going to be good, and I loved it. Like,
It's okay. Underestimated.
Yes,
because
we surprise people a lot. It happens all the time, especially when they see Mel go up there doing the sound check, or when she first comes up on stage to test the mic. They think we're going to be one thing, and that's not what they get. They get something a lot different. And it's cool though, because we can hit a lot of different angles. We hit the guy that didn't think we were going to be hard enough or heavy enough, and he's like, oh, okay. But then we also get this row of young women looking up at Mel going, oh my God, I could do that too. And it's really good for them. And if there's one thing I've noticed a lot in this tour, is in the younger audiences, you see a lot more women in the audience than when I was a kid. It was almost always a sausage fest when I was a kid. So to have these, young women coming to these shows and watching and enjoying the music, not just being there with like their boyfriend or something, but like being there on purpose and enjoying the music and seeing someone that they actually like. It's cool. The more people you can bring in, the better,
Well, that word of mouth gets out there, and because Melanie, if we seen you walking down the street, you'd never expect it. That's the voice that's going to come out. And I can imagine being right there and seeing you on stage going, okay, let's give him a chance. And then you start belting it and it's like, holy crap. Because that word of mouth that's huge. And that's going to get out there and make people want to come back in and see more. Now, what do you guys...
No one wanted to have a female fronted band, years ago, and now there's more and more and more. I'm a big Hailstorm fan, and that was one of the first I thought that kind of brought that back into the fold, because then you started seeing all of them, Taylor Momsen, and who I love, and that type of stuff. And there's more and more and more, and I believe Fender has reported that a lot of their guitar sales are female. Which is
cool. I haven't heard those numbers. That's awesome.
Yeah, they actually started having these people that sell their guitars make a little checklist of who bought the demographic of who bought the guitar, and their female sales numbers are out the roof.
That's awesome.
No, I don't doubt it. Cool. And I see them marketing instruments a little bit better. It used to be just a guys club, and maybe that wasn't the best way to sell it. If you're trying to sell a product, you need to reach as many people as you can, right? And before it'd be like, we have one pink guitar. That must be for the girls, but, that's not really a fair thing to do. It's also kind of interesting. It's a complete aside here. But if you look at the American rock industry, it is still very like dude centric. But if you look at like the Japanese J-rock market, it's extremely even. I'd almost say it's more women than guys in some ways, and they rock just as hard. So it's interesting to see how in the United States specifically, we're still kind of locked into that, but it's definitely changing. If, as a guy who did the mixing and mastering, if there is one place where it is really still just guys, it's in the production area. If you go into the engineer booth, if you go into the mixing booth, they're almost all guys. I don't quite know why that is exactly, but I did notice it's still very, very lopsided there. But music is changing, and I think that's for the better. Let's get more people in there. Let's get more people interested in the music. It's just more customers, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And a better experience too, I think, because you're getting just different varieties of sounds and looks and things.
Absolutely.
Now, as we get close to hitting our limits, we don't keep you guys for hours. What's on the horizon for Second Shooter?
We're gonna keep writing, there's a lot more where that came from, and just getting to as many people as we can, pouring our metal into people's ear holes is how I say it. Looking forward to after the tour, which just ended 2 days ago. We're just playing shows is already so fun, but or even just more invigorated about getting in front of people and
that's awesome.
Showing them what we've got.
So we still got to be pushing the album. It was released on the first day of the tour for us. I mean, the tour is still going on. We just only did the first 9 days. So now we're back. We're going to be looking to play more shows, pushing the album, making sure people know it's out there, that it's on the Spotify, that it's on Tidal, Apple, Amazon, all that. We have a Bandcamp where we have shirts and merch, and we'll probably be playing more local shows, and we'll be looking for more opportunities to tour. I got through it and I think it worked pretty well. I think we got along really well with the other bands, and it was a good experience, and we certainly got more fans, and people really seem to genuinely enjoy us. So just plugging away at it and keeping it going, and seeing how long we can ride this thing.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Second Shooter. This is Melanie X and Jeff Clark. We want to thank you both for joining us this week. Of course, I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who was in the chat, throwing their questions and whatnot. Be sure to go to our socials. We're going to have everything up from Second Shooter, from all of their social media and all that. So be sure to check them out. Click their stuff, like it. Same thing we tell you guys with us. Like and subscribe. Check it all out. We're going to ask you two to just hang on just a second as we bring this to a close. Of course, we want to thank Kathy and Music and More Records. Ace has always got the sign behind him. Bad Company Barbecue, those are both our sponsors. Thank you guys very much. Thank everyone for joining us in the chat. We will see you guys next week. And don't forget, Second Shooter. We'll see you
Thanks,
next
guys.
week.
Thank you guys so much.